Well, hello, welcome to another week worth of videos with Cornerstones. We're talking through 200 questions and answers that you can use to teach your children about truth. And so, again, as I say, almost every video, I hope that this is an encouragement to you. I hope that it helps you identify a few things that you can talk with your children about as you continue in family discipleship. So we've gone through several different questions. At the end of the last week that I was doing the videos, we got into talking about some of God's attributes. We're going to continue that this week. And so one of his attributes is truth, that God is true. So the question is, what does it mean that God is true? Okay, so the question, what does it mean that God is true? Well, God is true means all he speaks and does is true, and he is the standard of truth. So we talked about standard in one of the last few videos, that the thing that you're striving toward, the thing that you're following. Well, when God says, be holy as I am holy, and we've talked in our last video about what does it mean that God is holy, that he's pure and set apart. Well, today when we say that God is true, that means everything that he does, everything that he says, all of that is true. There is no hint of hiding some deception into lines of truth. And what I mean by that is, I think sometimes we talk about lies or we talk about deception. We say, well, yeah, it was a little deceptive, but at least there was a little bit of truth in there. And I like the saying, a half-truth is a whole lie. If it's not completely true, then it's not true. If it's partially true, then it's completely wrong. And we say, well, that's a little harsh. When we're talking about doctrine, we're talking about the Bible, we're talking about what it means to know and follow God, we have to be true in what we say. That's why words matter. So when we say things about God and we use words that we understand today, we use different idioms or euphemisms today to help people understand. Well, the issue is if it doesn't convey the truth, then we're not helping people to learn the truth. And so God is true means all he says and all he does is true. That when God speaks, we can trust that it's legitimate, that it's real. When God gives us his word and he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. When we have that word, we can take it to the bank, so to speak. That is legitimate. When God says there are no other gods before him, he's telling the truth, that there are no other gods that can compare with him, despite what we try to create in our own minds and in our own lives. The second question for today is, what does it mean that God is wise? What does it mean that God is wise? So wisdom is one of his attributes. God is wise. The answer, God is wise, means he always wants and does what is best, and he is the standard of wisdom. So he always wants and he always does what is best. So we talked about he always does and wants what is good. He always says and does what is true. He always wants and does what is best. And that shows that he's wise because he knows the best thing to do in every situation. Now, we look at the way history has played out, and sometimes we begin to question God's wisdom. And I would caution you, be careful in that. God knows everything. He knows how the pieces fit together. He knows how everything comes together and form one cohesive picture of his story, of history. So we can see all of that in God and recognize he knows these things that we don't know. Scripture says his ways are higher than our ways and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And so when we say that God always does and wants what is best, even when things don't turn out the way we think is the best, we have to trust God and his wisdom and trust that he's doing what's right. The next question for today is, what does it mean that God is faithful? So the fact that he's true, the fact that he's wise, we're coming to this now and we're saying, what does it mean that God is faithful? Because if he's always going to do what's true and he's always going to do what's best, he's always going to do what's good, He's always going to remain pure and set apart from his creation. So we've talked about his holiness, the goodness of God, with the truth of God, the wisdom of God. And now we're talking about the faithfulness of God. What does it mean that God is faithful? God is faithful means that he keeps his promises even when we are not faithful to him. So God remains faithful in that he keeps his promises. When God says he's going to do something, he does it. When God says that he is going to work something together, he does it, whether we see it or not. And oftentimes we're not faithful. 2 Timothy 2:13 says, if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. He can't deny himself, and when he says he's going to keep his promises, he will, because he is true, because he is wise, and because he's faithful. And so I hope that was an encouragement to you. We'll check out a few more questions tomorrow. Have a great night.